Those of you here live, thanks so much for sharing space. If you're hopping on via on demand, I'm so glad to be sharing space with you all today. Yoga blocks are light set of dumbbells. As always, there's a couple of opportunities where we will use them, but I'll give you those reminders that they're not meant to like hold us up, but to use to help us lift. If you happen to be a yoga block user, let's have one that you can access when you come to lie on your back. And if you don't have blocks, that's okay. I'll have you not use anything and I'll give you some other options. And then I just grabbed a blanket as well. We'll be seated early on and toward the end to take some movement of the hips. And sometimes it's just great to like shove a blanket under a hip or to sit elevated or under a knee. So that would be the suggestion there. So I'll go ahead and press play on some music and we'll take our time to connect in as we do to lie on our back. Again, with that offer, if you happen to have a yoga block, to have it within your reach. And as always, with this invite to come and connect physically on your back, that reminder there's not a rush to get there. That reminder that, particularly if you have a regular practice, to feel that really interesting dance between the familiar and the routine, and that extra layer of curiosity and noticing distinctions of today. Feeling yourself connect to the ground, not only physically through those areas where the body is touching the mat or the ground, but maybe that connection to the ground that lets you almost kind of let things ooze out of your mind and into the floor. And maybe even taking a moment to gently kind of drape your fingertips over your forehead. If that kind of physical touch helps you soften even the creases in the forehead and even just brings that visualization to life about things just kind of melting off of you for now. So much of the power of this practice is really kind of capitalizing on how physical movement hooks our brain to our body. So we give ourselves the space to realign emotionally and physically while we're here. Take a few more moments to find little movements if that feels welcome. And that's where we'll start, taking advantage of subtlety and breath to really check in and explore. Bringing feet to plant with knees bent if they're not already. Arms just comfortably by your sides at first, and inviting you to almost just shift your weight kind of back of one hip to the back of the other hip. And you might even feel a slight lift of the opposite hip as you push down. So almost a little bit more kind of rotation at the lower body, just to get that little bit of a wiggle, landing in what feels like a comfortable space across the weight of both hips, and then bringing your arms up overhead to maybe just touch fingertips to fingertips. And I'm going to work some cat-cow movements of the spine with arms. So I'm going to sweep my arms up over my head and find a little bit of an arch of the back and just go to a direction that feels best. And then bring the arms all the way back down toward your hips as you press the backs of your ribs to the floor and lift up your tailbone like a little tuck-like cat. And just kind of noticing one, how that pattern of connection of this little bit of cow with a reach overhead and cat with arms back down. This is what I like to refer to as our yoga multitasking, where maybe there's just a little level of concentration here in that very best way. And feeling some breath where don't worry about trying to pace with your breath per se, but just keep in awareness. And then when you're ready, the next time your arms come back down, let's fully rest them back by your sides. And let's actually go a little bigger this time to more of a bridge spine wave where you peel your spine up off of the mat, maybe coming to shoulder blades and then re-articulating down. And again, I hope there's just a cadence here that requires more than one breath to lift and to lower. Don't feel an urgency like you have to squeeze everything really fiercely, but almost feel like as you lift that your back body gets this kind of nice welcoming hug, the backs of the ribs, and lowering back down. The next time that you're re-articulated back on the floor fully, let's widen your feet a bit and come back to some sways of the knees where maybe things get just a little bit bigger somehow. And that offer to get bigger doesn't mean that it has to be biggest. So keeping that in mind, letting your knees drop side to side, you can start to pick the legs up here. There's all sorts of things that can surface, right? Rotation of the spine, movement of the hips and the knees. So just kind of do things that feel most interesting to your body right now. There's not a right or wrong way to be moving here. There isn't something that's better than another. Feel that combination, maybe even a sneaky bit of core work as well. And then as you're ready, let's pause with both feet lifted. Let's set the left foot back down, extend the right leg toward the ceiling, inviting you to let your arms rest by your sides, or maybe even hands just kind of gently laying over the base of your rib cage. Let's lower the right leg toward the floor, bend the knee, draw the knee in toward your chest, and extend the leg back up, kind of making this big bicycle type movement. So straight leg lowering, knee toward chest, and lifting at a pace that feels okay for you. And then when you feel ready, can we reverse it? I'm going to go from leg lifted to bend the knee first and then kind of kick the leg out so it's hovering over the floor and then back up. And you might notice, depending on where your hands are, particularly that you have to work a little bit through your torso to create some stability here. And then the next time that you have the leg up toward the ceiling, let's bend the knee. I'm going to quick turn myself. Can we turn the right hip open, kind of half happy baby-like, and then pretend you're going to cross your right leg over your left and just kind of back and forth. Hip sort of open to the side, and then a little cross-legged moment. And maybe you do just land kind of right leg over left leg, whatever that feels like for you. It might look a little cross-legged. It might look a little figure four. I hope it feels like you just kind of sighed, that your body just exhaled, that you're not creating a stretch, just a landing. You could sway the hips a little bit here. And then we'll unwind. Maybe you take a brief moment with both legs up toward the ceiling. Just kind of see how that feels to wiggle things around a little bit, knowing that we're going to give that left leg an experience here to warm up as well. So we'll set right foot down, eventually left leg up. And we'll start to lower toward the floor. Pull in like a bicycle, knee toward chest, and then leg back up. And don't worry about how many rounds you're getting here. Take a few more this direction with that offer to then eventually switch. And you can switch directions from anywhere. I'm going to go from leg extended to knee bent to kicking back out. And I am finding it interesting to have hands at the low ribs, just to kind of feel all the little subtle things that are moving through the torso, even though the leg is kind of our focus area. And then pausing with the leg lifted. We'll bend the knee, turn the knee open, kind of half happy baby or butterfly-like, and then just kind of let the left leg start to drape over your right. Just this dynamic little movement, hip feeling like it's opening and kind of closing or crossing. And then let's land left leg over right, whatever that means. It might kind of feel like you're laying cross-legged. It might feel sort of figure four. You might sway the hips a little side to side. And then we'll start to unwind, maybe one more stretch of the legs toward the ceiling, and we'll take just one more kind of interesting hip directional opener here. If you've got your block, again, I'm going to reposition myself. Let's meet with legs lifted but knees bent. If you have a block, let's set it between your thighs so the shortest edge is facing you. And if you don't have a block, I'm going to actually encourage you to just have your hands kind of on your inner thighs so the legs will not move. And then from here, can you turn your hips inward, so it's actually going to look like your feet go farther apart and your knees kind of turn toward one another. But can you feel that energy at your hips? And I know for me, I have to really concentrate on this, and it takes some energy, almost a little bit in glutes and outer hips to do this. And again, no block. Just kind of hold the legs so the legs don't come any closer as you try this. A few more, a little energy there. And when you're ready, set the block to the side and find any added kind of hug, rocks, movement on your back, and eventually some sort of progression with momentum to roll to a side or to rock and roll to bring yourself to be seated. And there's no rush. Coming upright as you feel ready. And once you're upright, hello again, I'm going to invite you to face a long edge of your mat. And you can certainly have that blanket if you have it near you, because we're going to move the hips in different ways in seated positions. You could always elevate your hips. Let's find a wide sit. And it doesn't have to be widest. It can be any kind of width, where as you move the sitting bones around, you feel like you're able to sit tall, kind of sitting bones forward and upright. And we'll do almost a seated windmill. So I'm going to take my arms out wide like a T, toes stay facing the ceiling. Let's rotate to look toward the left foot, maybe hinge to reach for that left foot, and then open, and then go to the right. Kind of a rotate and a hinge. So if you imagine kind of a windmill standing, right, there's rotation and that hinge at the waist. And I hope that hinge literally feels like that your spine and chest stay really tall. So you might feel some strength kind of working in your back body.
When you're ready, we'll pause facing forward, hands down. Can you bend just your right knee so you create kind of half butterfly or this little hurdler shape? Again, wiggle. The bend of that knee is whatever feels right to you. Feel your hips root to the floor as you find side bends. So right away, I hope you're getting this sense of spine moving in all directions. So we just did some rotation and hinge. Now we're finding this lateral movement. So then we'll wrap this side up, pausing vertical in the spine to then bend left knee and tuck it under right or left foot. So you're cross-legged. What do you need after all of that? Do you want to take just a couple of shoulder rolls? Do you want to actually move your neck, kind of turning your head around? Do you want to almost kind of cow and cat or do torso rotations? You might even close your eyes. Kind of just wrap up that little round of movement with whatever feels interesting here. And then when you feel ready, we'll unwind, we'll open back up to our wide V. Take your time, and maybe you're a little wider with the legs, maybe you're more narrow. Again, shift through the sit bones. Let's take another round of your windmill movements. And you might find there's just kind of a little bit more range of motion. Try not to fight for it, but be available to it. What is that distinction in your mind between kind of forcing yourself to go versus feeling that reception, that openness in the body? And then we'll take a brief moment to pause to face forward. We'll bend just the left leg, so temporarily in kind of half butterfly or hurdler shape. Again, a little root down of sit bone spine, growing tall as you move laterally, side bend and side bend. So feeling that combination here of constant lift of your spine, but also that little softness into that lateral movement. And then whenever you're ready, a brief pause to go cross-legged where we tuck right foot under left knee or any way that you want to kind of land to be seated this side. What else could you use then? Any other wiggles of shoulders, maybe just shoulder rolls or kind of swimmer-like movements, any other movements of your head, your neck. And whenever you're ready to come out of that leg position, feel free to just take on anything else you'd like to do while you're sitting. You could pedal the legs straight. You could also take some time to move through the wrists. We make our way to tabletop pose whenever you feel ready. So depending on where props have been, I just have my blanket kind of toward the back of my mat, and I do have my blocks to be eventually within reach here at the front of the mat. Tabletop pose. Let's do what we do, right? We move through the spine in tabletop pose, knowing we've already kind of done quite a bit for the spine. So maybe you still begin with cows and cats. Maybe you find yourself shifting in other directions. We haven't really done, we did a little bit of those side bends, right? So sort of that C shape where you might bring one shoulder toward one hip. You could start to move a little more circular here. So maybe you send your hips back toward your feet and you kind of arc like a semicircle and off to the left and the right. Give yourself that creative liberty here, knowing we've already been moving so much, to just take on some added exploration. And then let's give ourselves a really nice spine stretch and puppy pose. So hands go forward. I do like to curl toes under, you choose, to give that traction of a lift of your spine and a softening of your heart toward the mat. Maybe every inhale is literally that, a stronger lift of your tailbone up, and every exhale is a bit of a softening through your jaw and your collarbones. Take another expansive breath in and a full breath out. Let's pull ourselves forward almost through a cat spine to come to a knee plank. You might find you have to readjust where the hands are. I'm going to take a brief uncurl of the toes and just kind of check again here. Posture, chin tucked in, back of head lifting, not a sink, not a lift. And we'll go back and forth. Lift up like cat, send your hips back. I'm going to keep tops of feet down, so it's almost getting more child's posy. And then I'm going to round again like cat to pull forward, to pause in knee plank, or maybe you briefly soften your hips toward the floor like a big upright cobra. And just kind of going back and forth. As you shift forward and back, I hope there's a lift up through your low belly, kind of again, cat-like in the spine. So it's really deliberate and strong, that transition back and forth. Let's head back to our knee plank to realign one more time. And then for you to choose, do you prefer to head to the belly here or back to tabletop? So take your transition. If you're headed to the belly, you could even peel your body through that cobra. And let's take some time, if you're on the belly, to feel some variations of cobra, some lift of your heart space. If you're in tabletop, you could even opt for the forearms to find added movement of your spine to give your wrists a little break. Could we take a quick pause from either position to just warm up the legs? So if you're on the belly, let's have your hands close to your chest and just peel up your heart just a smidge, baby cobra, where you might even not even need your hands. Can you bend your right leg and kind of flex and pulse, heel toward your backside a couple of times? If you're in tabletop, I'm going to have you do donkey kicks, right leg. And then switch when you're ready, doing the same thing a few more rounds, left leg, pulsing. So if you're holding in that little baby cobra on the belly, there's that constant energy and strength in the back. If you're on the belly, let's release the legs. Can you lower your chin on your hands and literally melt your lower back across the ground, soften your belly? You might even just wiggle hip bone, or I'm sorry, almost like pelvic bone to pelvic bone, kind of shifting front. Take a few more breaths here. And then let's meet back in tabletop. So tuck the elbows in, feel that lift up strong through the low ribs. Another pass at puppy pose. Feel that stretch again. So we've done a lot more to create space in the back body. So feeling that expansion, feeling your neck elongate. And then when you're ready, let's come back up to tabletop. Keep the tops of the feet down if that works for you. And let's see how it feels to sit back on the feet briefly. And as always, take that time to maybe keep some weight in your hands. Maybe some days you realize you can sit very easily. Maybe today is not that day. So it's that reminder that yoga is not a ladder, that every day we kind of progress better and better. Today, your body is today. So appreciate, notice, stay tuned in. Let's take a moment on the knees. So feel that lift. Feel that strong spine, inviting you to take a freedom breath. Reach up, stretch up. Exhale, just bring hands to heart. And then we'll flow. Take a breath up, reach up. Thoughtful hinge, coming back to tabletop pose. And we'll work hips this time. So you can again opt to go to the belly or stay in tabletop, where we'll find hip openers. So if you're on the belly, it will be scorpions, bending one knee, rolling to that opposite side. And if you're in tabletop, again, you could also do this form forearms, lifting and opening. Notice, does that opening actually feel like it's being created from your hip and not your lower back? What would that feel like, to feel as though your hip is doing the rotating, and then that kind of gentle gravity tug helps assist? When you feel ready, the offer is to eventually make your way toward a child's pose. So that might mean you're coming off of the ground. And if you want to opt toward a different variation to pause, please do. Child's pose, we're going to see if we can kind of absorb ourselves a little bit closer to the ground here. So I think a lot of us like to widen the knees to have space for the belly and the ribs to soften. Maybe your arms stay active. You can certainly even like tent the fingertips and find an active stretch here. You can allow the forearms to soften. Take a breath in that feels like it's traveling the length of your spine, and a breath out that's maybe softening through your jaw. As you're ready, let's come back to tabletop pose. We're going to do sun salutations variation B. So we're actually going to stand briefly, but then use that stand to come back to our grounded shapes. So I'm going to set one block in front of the mat. We'll start a journey towards standing that might start in downward facing dog. So if you want to try it on, we'll curl the toes under, feel a lift, just like puppy pose. It's that big energetic drive up of your tailbone, but then your knees bend to kind of catch that hinge at your waist. Feel free to shake your head around here. Feel free to stay in puppy pose if that variation with knees down feels like it gives you more space and less stress. When you're ready to walk, let's bend the knees generously. Look toward your block or dumbbell and take that walk. That might include almost little heel presses. It might be little leg stretches. Top of your mat, press your hands somewhere, block, dumbbell, shins, or thighs. Find a few wiggles that might include bending and extending the legs. It might include almost some lateral movement of your spine again. You can pause with a heart lifted kind of halfway lift approach, or maybe you take more of a ragdoll approach. Conversation. There's a huge conversation here between your hamstrings, your back, your head, your neck, and gravity. So determining how much of gravity feels welcome and how much you want to use a little strength in your back. Let's stand when you're ready. Push through the feet, drop through the hips and reverse swan dive, or roll up with your head last. Take your time. Feel that lengthening of your body. And maybe you take kind of that bonus, again, freedom breath, where there's an extended reach up on a breath in and an exhale, hands to heart. So before we go right back down, let's just get a little more spine movement. I'll face you. Let's step right foot behind left, kind of touch the toes. Lift your right arm up, open up that right side body. When you feel like switching, switch, left foot behind right. And just go back and forth without trying to create a pose, but to create space. So kind of wherever the feet land, great. If you're kind of pushing a little gently into your opposite hip, great. If your arm wants to be slightly bent, great. What feels lovely to your body, just as a sense to rinse out. We started with right foot under left, so maybe the next time you're done with left foot behind right, we'll meet back at the top of the mat. So as we talked about, we're actually going to hinge back to step back into our low lunge. So I'm going to set both of my blocks next to my feet highest setting. Your hands are going to want to go somewhere, blocks, dumbbells, thighs, or maybe floor, but we're going to try not to dump into the arms. You ready? Take a reach up, stretch up. Sit like you're sitting into chair pose. So kind of depth in the legs, a little hinge at the waist so spine is strong. Where's that sweet spot where you can land? Hands on thighs or blocks or dumbbells or floor. Step your right foot back. Don't dump into your arms. Keep strength in the legs. Lower right knee down. Uncurl right toes. We're coming to a low lunge. You can lift up the arms. So lovely. You can bring your hands to your heart, your hips. You spend a few breaths in the lunge that feels really in service to your body. You might be forward hinging. You might be back, kind of more boxy over the right leg. And again, choose an arm variation. Take a few more little subtle movements if that helps you discover that place. Did you find that place where your body just went, yes, yes, stay there for 2 more breaths. And then when you're ready, let's bring hands to heart or hips, maybe back to blocks or dumbbells. Can we start to find half split where we send the hips back and lengthen the left leg to greet the hamstring? If you would like to take a few dynamic movements to kind of get there, then maybe you pause eventually. Maybe you want to keep that dynamic approach today. But as you land in your half split, remember how we did this in our windmills where we kept our spine really lifted? You can hinge to bring your ribs closer to your thigh, but my hope is that the rest of your back doesn't follow that. And it does often feel like work. Your back is working to counteract all of our forward flexion, so there's really almost strength in the backs of the ribs here. Let's shift our weight back into a bent left knee to find a twist. Your right hand can connect to the block or the floor, and we'll open right arm to the ceiling, left arm to the ceiling, or right hand can come to your left thigh if that feels like the supportive place for your hips and your spine. So your hips are feeling some stretch. Your spine, again, is feeling lifted and long, so that rotation is not rotating a rounded back. That's going to be very counterproductive and a little grouchy inducing. So lift and lengthen. All right, rotate back. Both hands either down on blocks or floor. If you don't have height here, I'm going to actually recommend that you come to shift back and come to the knees. But if you have a little height for your hands, let's try to tuck our way through. So I'm going to shift my weight to my right knee. I'm going to try to lift my left foot and squeeze and tuck it under the body. There might even be a cat spine to send the left leg back, land the toes. So good. If you went to knees first, we'll meet here. Move your blocks if you have them. From this tabletop with left leg long, let's lift the left leg. No arching of your back, so check if that kind of dumped your belly. And then sway that left leg side to side. Just enough movement that it's only hip, not back. There's not any C shape happening in your spine. And then we meet in tabletop pose. Pause briefly there, and then take any movements that serve your body right now. Maybe you want to take a typical flow to the belly because that kind of routine feels really meditative, and you just want to move through the familiar. Maybe you're really tuning into your body saying, I don't really want to do a cobra right now. I want to go straight to child's pose. However you want to approach this. Sometimes a little bit of kind of seemingly mindless movement can feel really lovely to the brain. And sometimes I love my brain really responding to what my body is saying and moving more acutely with choice. As you feel ready, we'll head back to tabletop pose and we'll take our second round. So remember that we're going to head to stand first. So I'm going to set again a block out in front. Make your way to standing as you would like to in the pace you'd like to get there. Spend time in downward facing dog.
Or don't. Start walking sooner rather than later. I'll just give some cues. I'll be moving my body, but you pace your pace when you're to the top of your mat. Again, take some time there. Just kind of see what feels best. And maybe as you take a moment, you realize I'm good to stand sooner than later. Or maybe you're feeling that gravity pull of a ragdoll variation. Whenever you're rising up, be thoughtful to use the legs and the feet to help you grow. So you're not just rolling or standing with your back, you're using your legs. And once you're upright and standing, no rush. Maybe there's again that added freedom breath. Exhale, hands to heart. Again, we'll take just a quick spine movement before we go back down. I'll face you. I'm going to rotate my body into gentle twists, lifting the opposite heel, but I'm going to kind of let my arms like sweep wide and then almost kind of wrap around me. So it's just like this little kind of gravity, just soothing of the arms. I'm lifting that opposite heel so I can rotate without wrenching my lower back. If there's another variation of this kind of twisting movement that would feel lovely to you, go ahead. But then again, we're going to make our way back down for the left side with our low shapes. So I'm going to come back to top of mat. I'm going to use my blocks again next to feet. Whatever you have, blocks, floor, or legs, let's start to sit into that chair pose, going to a depth that gives you a little challenge and feels like you've kind of found that spot, hard up. Touching to step back, left leg. Try not to dump into your hands though. Can you lower left knee down? Slowly, a little strength on curl left toes. You're headed to your low lunge to then take on a variation of that lunge in the way that this side says. So you might still reach the arms. Your shoulders might say, I want to be down, or you might want to cactus your arms. Are you feeling the weight of your hips forward? Are you feeling it back? Take little granular movements if you're not sure. And I hope there's at least that moment where there's like 2 or 3 breaths where you found that spot to stay. And then we start to prepare for half split. So hands can come down toward hips, maybe a return to blocks or dumbbells, where we lengthen the right leg as our hips go back, and feel free again to be dynamic here for the duration, or maybe just for a few rounds, and then you find that spot to land. Toes up, I find, brings more stretch in. Right hip dialed back, I find, creates a little more length. And again, feel free to hinge at the waist if that brings more back stretch. But notice if your back starts to round, I find I get better hamstring stretch if I'm also keeping my back strong and long. And then we'll soften back into a bent right knee to open and twist. So your left hand will go somewhere, block, floor, or right thigh, to open and twist right arm toward the ceiling. Notice where that connection point is, that sweet spot where there's a really big lift and lengthening of your spine, so your rotation comes from a safe place. Hips feeling a little softness, breath is free to move, and then right hand comes back down. So again, you can head to the knees, or if you have a little lift off of the floor, you can be blocks even on the lowest setting. Can we try to tuck our way through? So shift weight toward left knee, almost round like cat. See if you can draw the right heel under to tuck and send it through. And we will land nice in tabletop pose, hands off of elevation, right toes long briefly. If you got there from the knees, lovely. Lift the right leg. Notice if the lift sent your belly down. Draw the low ribs up and then sweep the leg side to side. Take a few more rounds here, that side to side movement. And then when you feel ready, we meet back in tabletop pose to take on again a flow of your choosing. And if you're not sure, maybe you start to move just subtly in tabletop, and then maybe those cues from your body take over. Oh yeah, I want to go to the cobra belly option. Maybe you want to take more shoulder movement. So you could kind of wiggle around through the shoulders while you're on the belly or in tabletop. And then again, what's your home base moment here? It can be coming back to sit on the feet. Remember we did that earlier? Maybe that would feel like a place to go. Maybe you want to stay on your belly a little longer or head to child's pose. These moments of practice that are my favorite in terms of being your facilitator, not because I get to be lazy and tell you less things, but because I hope you feel just that freedom take over, that empowerment to move how you want to move. Let's make our way back to tabletop pose. We're going to head to stand one more time, but we're going to go to the back of the mat this time instead. Let's keep one of your blocks kind of up on the left side of your mat, kind of toward the front. Let's set one of your blocks or dumbbells, if you have it,
On the right side, kind of more toward your feet. Again, you can come into downward facing dog if you like. You don't have to. I'm going to offer just one more little spicy strengthening move from down dog here before we go to the back of the mat. So trying on downward facing dog. See how it feels. And remember how we talk about that knee bend. What about bending your knees like a lot? Like knee bend, so it almost feels like your belly or ribs are pushing into your thighs. Feel this moment here, spine really long, and then can you lift the heels and push the heels toward the floor? So rolling up onto the toes and then heels down with that generous knee bend. So there's some quad strength here, there's spine length, shoulder space, and footwork. And when you're ready, whether you are in down dog or not, let's start to walk hands back toward the feet. I'm actually going to widen my feet a smidge. You might head straight to ragdoll. You might grab your block. You might come back to halfway lift. So a bit of repetition, but we got here differently. So acknowledge what feels best, and we stand again when you're ready. Roll up slow or head last. Take your time to elongate and lift, and acknowledge the fact that once again, we're upright. Head is above heart. We're here on our mats. Let's take the block that maybe you used coming upright. Let's make sure again we have one block just off to the right and one a little further ahead off to the left. We'll start at the back of the mat. We're actually going to start in balance. So if you want to move literally away from your space, if you want to be close to a wall or anything, it's a little different balance today. Please feel free to bring hands to something. Let's root down through your right foot. Lift and stair step the left knee. Then can you actually create more of a kind of a butt kicker, like sweep it through like you're going to bring your heel to your butt, and go ahead and pulse. So we did that a little bit earlier with donkey kicks. And then I'm going to face away from you. Can you pause and turn the hip out and in of that left leg? So kind of a windshield wiper. It looks like my knee is changing direction, but I'm turning at the hip. Can we pause with the hip open? So your left foot is more by your right hip. Maybe your right hand can grab your left foot. This is called sugar cane. You could do the typical kind of same hand, same foot, or it's that cross behind you. And because of that, you might actually find you want to hold something instead. I find it's a little different stretch on the quadricep and the hip. You could slightly kick into your hand, which creates a little hinge that I find kind of creates a little more opening at the hip. It's entirely up to you which variation you're in. The choice is just, again, it's choice. It's not about a layered experience or something being better to choose than another. Can we free up that left foot and land it out in front of your right? So if you stepped away from your mat, we're just going to be in a strided stance, left foot in front of right. I'm going to face you briefly. Feet on railroad tracks. Your right foot is slightly angled. Your left toes are forward. From here, with your legs long, could it feel like your hips turn forward and your shoulders turn forward? And we reach straight up briefly and then cactus your arms without arching your back. That's sometimes a reminder to myself. Something about this position, my body just kind of wants to arch. Can you tuck your low ribs in? And then maybe you start to soften into your left knee. You might even have to walk your left foot further forward. So warrior one. If it feels better to keep the legs long today, do that. The bend of the left knee is actually hopefully creating more stretch in your right hip. I find warrior one to be one of the most awkward and challenging positions because it's a funny setup. And the fact that we're trying to stretch your right hip, even though the left knee is bending. Take a few more breaths here. And then let's lengthen the legs, hands in. Can you turn your body to basically face the right side? And it doesn't matter if you're fully turned, but we're going to head to a wide fold. So your toes are facing forward, and we'll soften and bend, maybe grabbing your block or dumbbell. And I know we've been at the top of the mat a few times, but now we're in this really nice wide stance. So take some time here to keep, again, your heart and spine long, or to maybe feel kind of that rounded approach, using a block or a dumbbell to give yourself guidance on where the hands want to be. My hope for you always with this pose in particular, I just feel like there's this opportunity to release tension. That's always my wish for you. And it might feel like you're physically rinsing something out. It might feel like there's a space to let go more emotionally, especially if you're a bit upside down. There's kind of that release in that way of brain and head. We're going to rise through bear. So just a little sneaky strength here. Let's press hands into block or dumbbell. Lift your heart, lift your chin. Bend your knees to get a little buoyancy, but then more strength in the legs. Can you start to reach your hands behind you, but not lose the position of your back? So you're gonna have to turn on those legs really strong and the backs of your ribs, and then power through the feet to rise up, reach up, stand up, strong back. Good, hands to heart. Let's turn to face back to the front of your mat and step your right foot almost all the way up. And let's flip your toes upside down and give them a little massage. So especially if you did that footwork in downward facing dog, this is kind of the long overdue counter stretch. Take just a moment here to massage out. And then when you're ready, right foot next to left. What might feel lovely to you? Remember we did these kind of rotational sways before? We also did the step behinds earlier. Sometimes after standing work, I actually like to march and kind of use my hips a little bit. What just feels good to you? And then you might be kind of living in this like halfway up your mat position. We're going to eventually step right foot in front of left, but you can just kind of be wherever you are in your mat, knowing you might still want to block off to the left side. Let's root down through left foot to lift and stair step right knee. This is that offer again to be near something for touch. Sweep your right leg behind you where you're going to try some kind of butt kick, like little pulses, heel toward backside. Find that momentary little squeeze and turn the hip out and in. So again, it's going to look very windshield wipery, but the hip is what we're trying to do or use as the working point of the body. And then pausing with that open, so right heel kind of near left hip to maybe connect with left hand. So the offer is that maybe you're kind of doing that crossover behind, or you can do same hand, same foot. It's absolutely up to you. It's that sugar cane offer. Maybe you find a little hinge. Maybe you stay more upright. Any variation for a few more breaths, knowing that balance is a part of it, but it doesn't have to be the everything. If you're using something to touch your right hand to, or maybe your left hand, that's great. When you're ready, we'll free up that right leg to step it in front of your left. So if you're coming back to your mat, we just want right foot in front of left. Again, railroad track feet, so there's distance left and right, kind of fairly decent stride front to back with your left foot slightly angled. With that angled foot, can you still try to feel your hips turn forward? That's in and of itself a really unique setup. Shoulders forward, take a reach up, and then let's cactus your arms without feeling any sway of your back. So you might have to actually kind of squeeze a little bit in the front of your ribs. Stay here, or maybe you bend into the right knee. So that bend of the right knee, I hope still provides space for you to be turning your left hip forward. So again, this warrior one, that is hopefully a stretch of your left hip. Notice how your left knee is feeling and your ankle. It's a really nuanced and I would say awkward-ish shape. So feel rather than feel like you're trying to make a pose. And then we'll lengthen the legs, turn to face what's basically the left side of your mat. Well, we'll take a second round of a wide fold, though I'll face you. So take a second pass to bend. And really, in a lot of ways, this is, I don't know, a fifth opportunity where you're kind of folded in some way, but we've got those really wide feet here. Bring them closer if that feels lovely, widen them, approach again with your spine in any way that feels welcome. And even if you offered that to yourself as having this be a place to release stress or tension, what comes up for you is a place that could use it. Maybe it's your brain, maybe it's your shoulders. This time we'll stand through goddess. Press your hands into something, your block or your dumbbell or your mat. Turn the toes out, heels in. There's an offer here to actually kind of sit in yoga squat. So just kind of see, maybe there's space to sit down into those hips for a moment, free up your hands off the ground anytime. Maybe come up a little higher, hit that sweet spot where you can just kind of shift. Again, let this be focused as hip work. I know the legs are working, but thinking about the hips doing the movement just adds that partnership. We'll rise up as you're ready. I'm going to find a couple more side bends out of that. I just really enjoy this movement sometime for the spine. If you want to stay low and do those, you can. If you want to find actually rotation, you could certainly revolve your goddess. What feels best? Take a few more rounds of breath. And as you feel satisfied and kind of balanced in the body, I'm going to turn back how I would be. Let's rise up, face forward with your left foot almost all the way next to your right, but we'll take that opportunity to flip over the toes. So taking some time now to massage out the left foot. And it might feel just like that, like you're massaging kind of big toe to pinky toe. And as you feel ready, we'll bring left foot next to right. Anything else you want to do while you're standing? Do you want to rotate your spine again? Do you want to take a little march or a walk? We're going to come back down and float out one final time. On our way down, I'd love to offer a wrist stretch. So if you have blocks or dumbbells, let's set them in front of your feet at the highest setting. If you don't, I'm going to invite you to have hands on thighs to start, but we'll kind of combine this wrist stretch with what your back needs. Let's take one more big breath up. Thoughtful hinge kind of through chair to bend the knees to bring your hands to your thighs or your blocks or your dumbbells. And then could you flip your hands upside down? So this is where we're going to use our legs for a partner. We don't want to dump all the weight into the wrist so this feels awkward or uncomfortable. But you might find that you're craving more fold of your back, so you could lower your blocks or dumbbells. Maybe you really have kind of this desire to bend the knees a lot, and you could come to gorilla, where you actually put your hands under your feet, fingertips toward your heels. So just finding that sweet spot for the wrist opportunity based on what your back needs. Now, as we come to the ground, let's try to be thoughtful to not undo this stretch right away. Can you start to lift to fingertips on blocks or mat? Lift your heart, lift your chin. Can you kind of crawl your way to tabletop, maybe using your fingertips, not hands flat? Just kind of see if that works for you. And then I'm going to invite you to come to sit if that also feels okay. And you could come to sit with feet in front of you, or you could also come to child's pose, just something where we don't immediately put pressure on the wrists if at all possible. And feel free to kind of massage that out. You might make fists and roll them around. You might even literally kind of use one hand to rub across a wrist and then the other. And then take a few more moments, if it would feel lovely to you, to settle into a child's pose. Maybe there is one more time you want to find a cobra. So you determine what else you could use here before we are fully sitting, recognizing what else you might want to add through work of the wrists or not. There is no rush. So this is, again, that time where I hope you start to feel empowered to do the things that your body could most need right here. The offer is to eventually come to be sitting. And I'm going to encourage you to face a long edge of your mat if that's possible for just visual. No rush. As you come to be sitting, if you happen to have blocks and or a blanket, let's have everything kind of next to your right hip. So we're eventually going to face that side, and there could be all sorts of ways that props could be useful. So we'll progress into a hip stretch. Let's get our hips ready. They've been ready, hopefully, because we've been prepping them for 40 minutes. But let's lean back, knees bent, and find some windshield wiper sways. And you could lean back. Sometimes I like to lean back and almost lift kind of that dropping hip inward. There's just ways to get kind of sneaky and stretchy and open here. And then we'll start to connect toward deer pose. So we'll go both knees to the right. And so my hope is that you can kind of sit up and put weight over that right leg. You might actually pull the right hip out from under you, and my left hip is off of the ground a bit. Take a little time first to actually see what you want to do with the knee bends. Sometimes I like actually bending my right knee less, because then when I hinge forward, I actually feel more hip stretch. When the knee is bent a lot, sometimes I actually feel more in my knee and quadriceps, so it's just something to play with. You could use your blocks to rest your forearms on. You could also shift this toward pigeon if that would actually feel interesting, where you shift weight toward right hip and send left leg back. Now, in either position, think about if you want to be more tall, or we like to say sleeping your pigeon or your deer. If you're in pigeon, you could shove a blanket under your right hip. I hope I have not just said so many things that you are lost in the journey of choosing. I will just add one added piece. I think so often we see these poses as being more beneficial if we're kind of rounded down. Sometimes I like to be lifted because that builds strength in my back. So if you feel like you're really kind of hunched over lately or you're feeling tension in your lower back, it might actually behoove you to be more upright. Your choices. Just want to layer in a bit of understanding of what's kind of potentially happening here. And then when you're ready, if you went into pigeon, let's see if we can meet back more deer-like, all of us, moving any props out of the way. And then let's unwind with maybe taking both legs straight out in front. So we give the knees a break. We let the hips go neutral. Maybe you wiggle, maybe you lean back and just create some opening through your chest and your heart. And then we'll start to set up for our second side. So you might, again, then want to shift. Blanket, if you have it, blocks next to your left hip. And we'll eventually bend the knees, a little wider than the hips. If you want to take a couple of windshield wiper drops first, take your time here and things that are feeling lovely. And we'll eventually meet with both knees to the left. Starting to feel that sitting up and that, again, moving around of things, including maybe using your right hand to kind of pull your left hip out from under you. So you're a little bit more on the hip bone and less just on the flesh of your leg. Again, remember, you can actually take the left knee to be bent less. For me and deer, I actually find that to be a greater hip opportunity stretch when I actually open up that left knee a bit. Again, you could find pigeon. And please remember, it's okay to choose differently. So like my left side, I don't feel pigeon is really welcome on this side. Remember, you can sleep your deer or pigeon. You can be more upright. Use the blocks, use your blanket, tuck things under, bring arms to things. Stay really open to doing something that seems slightly different on this side. Not that you have to, but it also doesn't have to be a repetition. When we have these little subtleties in the body, it's really okay and appropriate to acknowledge that with a different variation. Take a few more breaths. Notice, we talk about this lately, if you're chasing some really big stretch here, or if you've been able to actually kind of surrender into something that feels relatively uneventful, know the power of that too. And then it's a slow, thoughtful rewind. If you went to pigeon, the invite might be to come back to deer briefly where both knees are bent. And then we just kind of start to carefully unwind. And as you do so, as you maybe straighten the legs, just kind of notice what else would feel right to you while you're sitting. If you just kind of, again, want to move through the head, neck, or the wrists or anything else, as we start to come to our back, we will take a classic supine twist. I'm going to put a block between the knees just to give a little added support to the lower back. You could also use your blanket to catch the legs. So anything that you want to have within your reach, feel free. But we'll head to your back as you feel ready. And take your time. There might be a little kind of combination of core strength and holding with the legs to bring yourself to your back, or we get to feel that support of the ground beneath us again. And sometimes when I come to lie here, I get this visual, maybe it's the math teacher brain, of this kind of arc, this bell curve of just having kind of played witness now to the practice that we had. We started here, we literally worked on the ground, we stood, we returned, and now we are back to where we began. Having taken this really big journey, some of which might be really obvious, some of which might be feeling more subtle. So let's let it land and thank our spine. If you are using or would like to use a block, we'll put it between the legs. The legs can start lifted around the floor, just like at the beginning where the legs are the closest they can be with the block between them. And then we'll start surrendering legs to the left. And that's kind of the idea. Maybe your blanket is there to literally roll, almost roll on your left side. So this twist is going to start from the legs. Start to bring your attention to the lower back. And then feel your spine kind of rotating open. That might then feel like you rotate your chest toward the ceiling or sky without any need to push your right shoulder to the floor. Your right arm can just kind of kickstand and rest. You might drop your right ear to the floor to look over to the right side. It just kind of creates a continuation of that rotation through your neck.
Just like we talked about a few moments ago, that sometimes the power of this twist is where there's no urgency. There's almost a sense of nothing really happening because we've created this really welcome environment where the body is surrendering into the twist, not being put into a twist. Let's make sure you're looking back up at the ceiling or the sky. And then I would probably bring your arms close to you. So there's a combination of pushing with the arms and using some core strength to bring you back to the middle. Let your feet land briefly with the knees bent and maybe just see how it feels to not move. And maybe you feel again such a softening in your belly that your knees almost start to drift open. Not that some movement here isn't okay, but sometimes it's that recognition of just letting ourselves try on stillness. Take another breath or two as we let the spine realign. So when we go into the second twist, we're going really safely and we're going with full awareness. Block between the legs if you're finding that option to be interesting. Maybe a blanket again next to right hip. And we slowly start to surrender and lay on your right side. Again, you might even be rolling onto your right shoulder completely to then create that sense of rotation from your tailbone up and through. You might even subtly notice, I know I did notice, that maybe one shoulder is a little closer to the ground. So here I just can tell my left shoulder is a little closer to the floor than my right shoulder was. And all that is a micro observation and a reminder that things just feel different on our sides, and that's okay. Maybe your left ear is dropping toward the floor. Again, this place where maybe breath is one of the only noticeable things. But the body's been able to soften and surrender so fully here that there isn't an urgency, there isn't a sense of noticing or feedback. Maybe take 2 more breaths. And then we'll make sure that we're looking back to the ceiling or the sky. Arms maybe closer to your body so there's a little help in that nice way, right? The spine just got to surrender. So we help ourselves come back. Maybe again, that brief pause with both feet planted, knees bent. And as you land, you might be feeling your body is just really ready to be still. Maybe you're noticing something subtly in the body that still could use a little movement or a stretch as we start to make our way toward rest. Body could be extended long. Knees bent could feel really delightful. You could let the knees drop in on one another. You could lay on your side. You could certainly be seated. Allow yourself to still feel that absorption into gravity wherever those touch points are. Our practice is really kind of meant to bring us here, to build this stamina for stillness, alert yet still. Giving your brain space, your body space to land and absorb your practice for just a few more moments. And with that invitation, I will go off camera just ever so briefly, and I will bring you back after a few more quiet breaths. Here is your gentle invitation to begin to notice, noticing your body and brain's availability for rest today. And maybe that noticing is coming from a yoga power nap. Maybe it's from a place of just having felt a little stir, a little unsettling. Whatever this time has been for you, it is so powerful. So I hope there's a grace and a kindness for your ability to find rest today and to also acknowledge what that means for closing up your time. Stay, linger, even well beyond my voice if you have the ability to stay and rest, even if it just means you stay where you are while we close our practice, or feel free to find movement to bring in exploration and shifting. Know that I'm here seated, eyes closed. There's always an invite to join me there if that makes sense for you to transition from this part of your day to the next. Maybe if you're feeling some awareness of my voice and what's happening with eyes closed, giving you the invite to take 3 just really intentional breaths. Whatever that means for you, whatever depth, just a focused breath. And after that third exhale, maybe bringing hands to rest over your heart, maybe bringing a little smile to your face, feeling that gratitude for you for having made this time and space I send my gratitude out to you all. Thank you for including me in your day. I wish you so much peace and ease in your body and your mind. And as always, I acknowledge there is love and light in me that truly does see and honor and bow in gratitude to the love and light in each and every one of you. Namaste. Thanks so much, everyone. It was so great to see you. Thanks, Thomas, Maki, Stacy. Welcome.